Hey, athletes and influencers, have you ever felt overwhelmed about building your personal brand, leveraging NIL, which is making money off of your name, image, and likeness, and living the dream of your life? Well, I have to tell you, you're not alone. There are so many people like you. And here is the good news. Today, Keith and I are going to walk you through the simple and actionable steps to get started today. Now, I'm Jay Hicks and I'm joined alongside Keith Miller. He's been helping people for about 2.5, 3 decades, and we're going to jump right into it. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay, and thanks for putting a number behind the years of experience here. Hey, you're right. Student athletes, you got to have a circle. You got to have your people around you, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. We want to be part of your circle. We want to help you. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to jump right into it. Today, this is going to be an action-packed coverage. Today, we're going to be covering, we have some really big news. I don't want to spoil it. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover the basics of NIL and how to start leveraging it. We're going to have a real heart-to-heart, like a real conversation about some of the mistakes that we see athletes making. And we're going to talk about the power of storytelling, how to create an irresistible brand. Keith, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And for folks that don't know, Jay is the excellent storyteller. He is great at this. So you better listen up.
Man, I'm really excited. I have to say, first of all, we're going to get into this. We're going to, first of all, thank our friends at Influxer for being really behind us and helping us do this content today. So I'm really excited. Are you ready? Okay. If you give me permission, we'll get started. Are you ready, Keith?
I'm ready. Hit that button. Let's go.
All right, here we go. First of all, we are very excited because let's say it together, Keith. 3, 2, and 1. We have a show.
We do.
We have a show.
We have a show.
And the show is called Brand&Athlete. And I'm really excited. You know, as you can see in my shirt here, it's Brand&Athlete. And we're going to talk about it for a second because you and I have been working in this space for a long time. And we know that the NIL space and also people who are just in the digital space, it's like the wild, wild west right now.
Yeah, boy, I heard a lot of people say "Wild Wild West," and that refers to a lot of different things. When the legal part to me, the rules part to me, there's still some framework we got to worry about. But I think in terms of creativity and how we think about NIL, yeah, I mean, this truly is. There's no boundaries to what somebody can come up with and monetize on and build a brand on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm excited. And if you notice, the name is Brand&Athlete. And the thought process behind that, Keith, as we've talked about, is that you're a brand first, right? And an athlete second. And what's cool is we know athletes are gonna, being a student athlete is a short period in the total life, hopefully, of many people, right? Most people aren't gonna go pro, and people are gonna be a brand and a real estate agent, a brand and parent, a brand and a person. And so the idea is that everybody is uniquely different and they bring something to the table. And one of the things that I'm really excited about, Keith, talking about this show, it's our goal to really showcase and help and empower athletes, coaches, parents, athletic administrators, and brand, and really help them dial out and build their own brand and live the life of their dreams.
Absolutely. You're freezing out again.
Okay, we can keep going.
All right, sorry. Yeah, threw me off for a second.
It's okay.
All good. All right. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Okay, yeah. Brand&Athlete. What we hope to deliver here is sound advice for the parents, for the student athletes, for everybody that is out there trying to build something right now.
Right.
I love to say, Jay, and you can disagree with me if you want, but I visit a lot of universities throughout the year.
Right. Absolutely.
And the one thing I tell a lot of student athletes is you are the CEO of your brand.
I love that.
You're the CEO.
Yeah, yeah. So jumping right into it, let's talk about it. This word, this terminology is thrown around a lot of times. Today, we're going to really unpack a lot of cool things. Name, image, and likeness. We've heard it. NIL. Exactly what is NIL, Keith?
Sure. Name, image, and likeness is exactly what it kind of sounds like. Uh, Historical reference, and this is the professor in me. I can go for hours on the history of NIL, but
Sure.
basically, it is a person that is using their name. I've got a name, Keith Miller.
Right.
Jay's got a name, Jay Hicks.
Right.
Using our image. I don't think anybody's going to be buying a picture of Keith Miller anytime soon, but there is an image, and yeah, possibly there's some value there. Likeness, whether it be some sort of outline of me or some other representation
Right.
of me. Name, image, and likeness. Some business, some company that wants to utilize any of that type of stuff to enhance their brand, market their products, their services.
Right.
That's what name, image, and likeness truly is. I mean, we think about it. Name, image, and likeness has been around,
Okay.
human civilization forever. I mean,
Okay.
we go back.
Let me ask you this real quick. I just have a question. So you've covered that. I think one of the reasons why we really created the show is to help people, give them tools, to give them insights, strategies, talk to some of the best people in this space. And so I have a question for you. If people are looking to maximize NIL, to really lean in to being a digital content creator, to being a storyteller, and in doing that, talk to me about what are the importance of understanding NIL and how to be successful in it. I mean, I'm really excited because this is what this show is going to do.
Yeah, I think what's really important is to understand your market value and
Yeah.
to understand that you have to build the value of your name, image, and likeness. You have to build a following. You have to build a culture around yourself. So when
Right.
these companies, when these businesses look at you, they're buying into you. They're
Right.
saying yes to you. They want to align with who you are as a person. They want to
Right.
align with you as a brand because they love the positive imaging. They want a return on their investment.
Sure.
And so by aligning themselves with you, what is that going to bring them?
Right.
So I think as a student athlete, you have to think about that all the time. What can
Okay.
I bring to the table to help that?
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's give them, Keith, a little bit a sneak peek, and let's talk about the show. Right. This is going to be a weekly show that we put out, talking to guests, talking to different people in our space, whether it's coaches, athletes. I'm really excited about what we're going to do, and really excited to bring and add value to this community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that we've talked about and what we want to bring to these student athletes is good golden nuggets, good tips.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm really excited, and we're really, excited to be supported by, our presenting sponsor, Influxer, who's dedicated to helping student athletes navigate the NIL space. And as we talked about it being the Wild Wild West, you know, everyone needs resources, right? Education. You do a lot of that, as you alluded to earlier, with some of your travels and things. So I'm really just thankful that we have really great presenting partner Influxer to help us on this journey.
absolutely. I do like Influxer and what they bring to the table. Not to say others don't bring valuable tools to the table, but
Sure.
I think for student athletes, examining what tools are available to
Right.
you.
Right.
And Brand&Athlete, we're a tool.
Yeah.
We are a good tool. We're bringing some wisdom. We're bringing some nuggets of knowledge, things for you to ponder and think about, and in terms of maximizing your value and how to strategize what you go for.
Right.
That
Right.
we
No,
want
I'm
to
really
be,
excited. I'm really
yeah,
excited. I can't wait to start on this journey together, the two of us, and then of course along with Influxer. So join us on Brand and Athlete. Follow us on social media for more updates and behind the scenes content, and let us be a part of your journey. All right. So here's the cool thing, right? We have this thing. You can download a free ultimate NIL success checklist, right? And kickstart your journey. Go to our website, brandandathlete.com. It's spelled all the way out. sign up and you can receive that. So I'm really excited, Keith.
I am too. I download the checklist, and it's a great resource.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's start it.
No, I'm excited. Now, welcome. If you're just joining us in, welcome to Brand Athlete. I'm JF Hicks, and I'm joined by my co-host, Keith Miller. Today, we're going to help you transform your understanding of NIL and personal branding. We're excited to have a great lineup of content throughout of our show, and including insights on building your brand, avoiding common mistakes, and how to be a really powerful storyteller.
Yeah. And sorry, damn, this glare. Sorry, I get the noon glare here,
No, you're good.
like blinding me here. So, all right, sorry. That's twice now I've stopped.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. We're just going to keep rolling. All right. So here's the thing. All right. 3, 2, 1. Let me go. All right. So, Keith, for high school athletes starting out, what's the first thing they should do to begin getting involved and potentially making money with NIL?
That's a great question to get us kicked off here. I think, first thing is you have to look at what platforms are you going to use? Are you going to be restrictive to yourself? Are you
Right.
only going to use X? Are you only going to use Instagram? Are you only going to use Facebook? And I think that's a common mistake when
Right.
I talk to students. I only want to be on Instagram. Well,
Right.
by making that choice, you're restricting your potential audience. So I
Sure.
think broadening that scope and starting to build an audience while you are in high school and getting folks on board. So
Real quick though, what
yeah,
do they need to check with their state? There's 50 states. It's so complicated. I mean, I just know questions that some parents are asking. How do parents address that at the high school level?
some states allow NIL. There's quite a big following, quite a big population of states that are allowing NIL.
Right.
My recommendation, though, regardless if you are in that type of state that does allow for NIL at the high school level, is you still need to be plotting and planning. You still
Right.
need to be strategic in getting that groundswell of support. So
Yeah.
when you do make that transition to college, you've already got a great base.
Yeah,
It-
no, I love it.
so
And I think you're so right. Like you said earlier, just really developing, and we're going to walk people through that today. How do you storytell? How do you create, content across all the platforms and doing all of that? And I think you're so right. Checking with your local state regulations. And so that brings us really to college athletics, right? Like, what about college athletes, Keith? What steps should they make? Because I know student athletes are sitting here, they're seeing this tremendous opportunity. But as we're going to talk about today, there's some steps they need to take to begin. What are some of the first steps, the easy things that they can do to get started today?
yeah, and you've mentioned it before, Jay. That feeling of being overwhelmed.
Right.
Don't be overwhelmed. First off, I think that's the first tip. Don't be overwhelmed. Take the step by step. I think as you look at the NIL opportunities, look at what resources your school has already.
Right.
Your school, most universities, we're seeing it at the junior college level. We're even seeing it at the high school level. But check out what resources they have. Those administrators, those coaches, they've worked already to find some different opportunities for you, whether it be an online marketplace platform,
Right.
whether it be a co-branded merchandise platform. There are already going to be some things where you don't have to come in and recreate the wheel.
So they should go find those people in there. What you're saying, they've got the resources, they've got the NIL marketplace, they've got all of the contracts, right? Where should they go specifically, like within the athletic department, from your experience?
It depends on the level of school.
Sure.
I think I always like going to the compliance officer. Most schools have a compliance officer. At the Division III, Division II level, they often have a staff member that's a coach, and they're also being the compliance officer.
Right.
So
Right. Gotta love it.
I love the smaller university setting where you're gonna wear those different hats. But I think identifying those folks who are coordinating and in control of a lot of those different things is a key thing, because not only to identify those resources, but you ultimately are going to need to know how to disclose
Right.
legally to your university any
Right.
NIL activity you have.
And
So
they
I
can
think
go, the people on campus already know that students don't have to worry about it. These folks will walk them through, will take their hand, right, and walk them through this process. So there's no reason for people to be worried about all of that. Right.
absolutely, yeah, and if you're going to a school at the D1 level that it might be a bigger school, they're likely going to have some sort of NIL liaison. They're going to have
Right.
some sort of general manager or somebody like that, and starting off with them and just exploring. You're starting off creating this relationship with whomever it is at the university, finding out what resources are available. What do I have to do to disclose things? But getting it straight from the horse's mouth, sort of say.
No, I
Uh,
love it. I
yeah,
love it. Yeah, so you're talking about, and let's take a step further, right? You're talking about getting in touch with the NIL office, which is typically going to be through the compliance officer. Some people have general managers. Just depends on your budget. Some schools don't have that, but they do have someone that if students ask, they'll identify, hey, this person in our athletic department or campus, to talk about that. And that brings me to a good point, right? Because we know student athletes are going to want to get out there in any sort of a content creator and make content. What steps can students make to make sure they're not maybe stepping on the toes of the university, right? Who typically is going to have deals in place, right? As many fans go out and you see and you look at the scoreboard, you look around the ribbon boards, you look around the football, softball, basketball arenas, they've already got sponsors, right? How can students avoid, know what that process and that landscape is and the opportunities that exist?
yeah. And I think you're hitting on a really good point because most state laws they actually give that institution, that university, the right to nix a deal.
Right.
If if there is some sort of conflict with the sponsorships, there is that ability. So I think you're approaching this with the right mindset, Jay. I love this line of discussion because it is really
Yeah.
important. If a student athlete goes and they work out a deal with a shoe company, for
Right.
example, but the university has a
Right,
big deal
right,
with
right,
the
right, which is common, right? And think about this. Some of the schools are probably gonna think if you don't know any better, you could get yourself maybe in a little, well, it won't be trouble because it probably won't, it'll the deal might get nixed before it publishes, right? But an opposing opponent to the primary shoe company may say, X company, I don't want to give out names, may say, hey, we could sneak in and work with this athlete, right? And those
yeah.
things happen, right, Keith?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's you don't want to waste the time, the energy
Yeah,
on a deal
yeah,
that's more than likely going to be an issue
right.
at the tail end. So
That
I think
won't that probably will never come to fruition, the final deal, right?
I hate to use the term, but you got to do your homework first, right? Do your homework first.
I'm
You know,
getting
and I
triggered already. You bringing me back to school when you mention homework.
Oh man. Well, I'll tell you. I think looking at a university, going through any of their sort of marketing department, any of
Right.
their development department, however they phrase it at the different university, anything that talks about their corporate sponsorship structure and,
Right.
and different things like that, I think that's a good starting point.
Yep.
Identify who is already a corporate sponsor.
Yep.
I know a lot of schools are very sensitive. They don't want their student athletes going out and, in a sense, double tapping
Right.
those corporate sponsors because,
Coaching.
yeah, a little bit of, feels, yeah, poaching. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But at the same time, as a student athlete, if your university has a deal with the shoe company, don't automatically assume I'm just going to go approach this other shoe company.
Absolutely.
I think we got to use a little common sense
And,
here.
and schools, right? Just to jump in here, schools are, I mean, excuse me, some of these athletic brands are already accustomed to work with people on the campus, right? Like oftentimes a school will have a primary apparel provider. And then oftentimes they have deals depending on the size of the school with, oftentimes the head coaches, right?
Yeah,
And the staffs oftentimes, right? A lot of these schools now have deals that a part of their sponsorship is providing a certain level of gear to all the athletic staff. So So does that mean that there's also, Keith, I guess a question for you is, are there opportunities, right? Because the brands are just out there, we know, to get their brand out there further.
Yeah, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
Just like any business, Jay, it's about relationships. I think
Yeah.
starting basis, you hit on something really critical here. Talk to your coaches too. I
Yeah.
know they might not be your NIL administrator at the school. Coaches know how to sell themselves. They know how to read between the lines. But talk to your folks that are there on campus. Start start understanding the lay of the land.
Right.
And that's your starting point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start
It's all
there.
about, like you said, relationships near and afar. If you love the content that you're hearing so far, follow us on social media for more behind the scenes content, updates, and more engaging conversations. And so that brings us to a question I have for you, right? I think we know that on campuses and every roster, there are different kinds of athletes, and you have what I would call the rising star versus the established star, right? And I think from a content perspective, we know that they have different opportunities, both equally beneficial. We'll get into content and creation later, but we know, for example, the person who's a walk-on even on some of your teams have a great perspective and access to um, storytelling and documenting their life. And then stars have tremendous opportunities, right? That we know people who are getting a lot of coverage, that a lot of people would love to see the behind the scenes. What is your recommendation from an NIL perspective when, how should, for example, that rising star, right, the people who just landed on campus, handle NIL versus the established star, whether that's a 50-year senior or someone who's come in and established themselves?
Well, one of the things I really enjoy is I love living vicariously through these student athletes. Okay? As I think most fans do, as I think families do, members of your church, they want to live vicariously through you.
Yeah.
They want to feel connected to your journey. So I think whether you're the rising star, you're fifth year senior, whether you're a walk on coming onto the team for the first time, people want to know your journey. They want
Right.
to
Absolutely.
they want to feel like they're part of it. So I think as you approach how you use social media, invite people in,
Yeah.
give them a window into, let them sit on that passenger seat next to you and feel like they're part of this journey with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the journey's good.
I think that, Keith, you just hit on, sorry to jump in. I
Yeah.
think you hit on a key point, because one of the things you and I constantly talk about is people being their authentic selves, right? And just being that rather than trying to be something other than what they are. And I think there's such a huge and unleveraged opportunity in an organic social media, right? I mean, think about this. Most people are one post away from going viral, or 6 months away, or a year away of just being consistent to living the life of their dreams. And one of the reasons, kind of where I'm going with this, is part of the things too, as a former athlete, we always talk about, don't make mistakes that are self-defeating, right? Like don't torpedo your own ship. And so my question for you is, what are some of the precautions the student athletes can take, right? And what are some of those key takeaways? Because with this tremendous opportunity, we also have to make sure that we don't hit some of those stumbling blocks. What are you seeing out there? What are some things that student athletes should really be cautious of? Or just say, hey, these are some things that oftentimes I'm hearing a lot of questions about.
Yeah. I think you nailed it though. You're one video from going viral, or you're one play from being the
Yeah.
highlight of the day in all the national news
Right.
networks, something. So my big question to those student athletes is, are you ready? Are you
Yeah.
prepared for that?
I love that.
Are you ready for that moment?
Yeah.
Because the moment those things happen, I think in the back, a lot of student athletes' minds is, I'll have time to, clean up my stuff and get ready.
Absolutely.
But most of these moments are unplanned. They happen and you don't even know they're going to happen.
Right.
And, we'll take great example is you make a one-handed catch for a touchdown that captures the nation's attention.
Right.
Okay. At that point, that is going to go viral in a heartbeat. you're not going to have time to go back
Right.
and clean up your
Right.
social media and
People
your
are gonna
image.
go immediately to their social account while they're on their phone, right? We're gonna talk a lot about this thing. People are gonna
Yeah,
jump on this thing. You're not gonna have, to your point, I think you're so right. And are you ready? Right. My old coach used to say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
yeah. So have your stuff ready now.
Yeah.
Be ready. I mean, everybody. I think most people want to be famous. Most people
Right.
want to become known in a very positive way that drives, some sort of business, some sort of monetary gain.
Yeah.
You know, but I think, are you prepared? Are you ready for that? And when I
Yeah.
look at student athletes, when I work with them, if somebody was to go to your social media right now,
Yeah.
what are they going to see?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
good? Is it positive? Is it negative? If
That's a
if
great
it's
point.
if it's negative, I mean, I'm not talking about, hey, go get your stuff ready so we can look at it in an hour. I'm talking about right now. If we go look at it, is there going to be something
Right.
on there the fan base, the customer, a potential customer would see that would turn that person off? And if the answer is yeah, there is something, then address it now. Don't wait till an
Yeah.
hour after you've gone viral on a national news network for a one-handed catch.
Yeah.
Too late. Too
Well, let
late.
me let me ask you about some other things. I was scrolling through my feed before I was getting up yesterday, actually, and it was a content creator. He had around almost 300,000 followers, right? Pretty substantial. So regular, not a non-athlete, but someone who talks on a particular topic. And one of the things he was talking about is that most content creators who get started don't understand the major tax implications of being a content creator. Keith, talk about that. How should student athletes and anyone creating content, how should they be thinking about this?
Yeah. I want to tread the line because everybody's situation with taxes and what they bring
Sure.
in terms of income is going to be a little bit different. So it's tough on something like this to give something very specific. Number one, I think, depending on how much value, how much revenue you're thinking that you're going to derive from this, you're definitely going to want to talk to some sort of tax professional. But
Right.
rules of thumb, I'll
Yeah.
give you some rules of
And,
thumb.
and that's just sound advice, right? You're not saying I'm giving you tax advice. You're saying if you're going to do this, you probably should be thinking about taxes going into this and talk to a professional who does this all the time.
Plan to be successful.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right. So if you're going to make over $600, you're going to enter this rule of thumb bracket. I like to,
Which
10%.
I hate to keep it doing this, but that's actually not that difficult to do, right? I mean,
No,
the
yeah,
$600, the opportunity for many people, they can, I don't like to use the word easily, but I think with effort and consistency, would you say that people can surpass that $600 mark
yeah.
that you're talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think so. So I think withholding 10%. So when you're bringing something in, make sure you're not spending it right away.
Yeah.
One of my favorite follows is Shaq. He's got a great
Yeah.
He's got a great tidbit, a great story about his beginning of his NBA career. He signed a contract. He went and spent it all, and he forgot about Uncle Sam. Okay, don't go
Yeah. I've
spend
seen
it
that.
all. Make sure
I've
you're
seen that. Yeah. I've seen him talking about that.
yeah. It's a fantastic little tidbit. Now, if you're going to make more than $10,000, rule of thumb is 30%. You want to
Right.
withhold more. So the more you make,
Yeah.
the more you want to hold back. Okay.
Right.
Don't go celebrate right away when you get a big deal or you make some money from NIL. Don't go spend it right away.
Look, Keith, Uncle Keith is saying, don't spend all your money.
Oh man.
Hey, I also, on the flip side, there's also expenses too, right? That's keeping it up. If you if you upgrade a phone, maybe you have an old phone, you said, hey, I want to create content. This one, maybe you cracked it, whatever. Even if you cracked it, the repairs, if you buy some of the tripods that a lot of content creators have, right? These are expenses related to content creation. And again, not giving tax advice because we're not tax professionals, but we're saying track them, keep your expenses, because then you can take them to, right, the tax professional for them to make the decision, because we're not tax professionals.
Yeah, and one of the first tidbits of advice when I go to a campus and I'm talking to a crowd of student athletes is If you're not familiar with an Excel document, start getting familiar. Start writing all this stuff down.
Yeah. Even if it's just a note screen, right, on your iPhone or whatever
Yeah,
device you have, right?
yeah. And if you're paying $20 to your buddy to help you
Yeah.
with a graphic, mark it down. Every
Or
little
to
thing
even,
counts.
right, some people are also, paying people to record them to record the TikTok dances, right? Maybe it's a roommate, they're giving them some money, right?
Yeah,
To just film it, because sometimes you do need people, and some people are paying people to help them.
I'd love to see if you got a TikTok dance, Jay.
You know what? If I did, it would be I'm the least talented dancer in my family.
Oh,
That's a fact. That's
oh,
which
oh.
speaks one to their dancing ability and also to mine. So
See, I'm Brand&Athlete. You're not only going to get great tips, but you're going to get
yeah.
a little dose of the human element of me ribbing Jay a little bit, and maybe him ribbing me.
No, it's so true. And speaking of which, right, we're just being, in our conversations of relationship in this show, just being authentic. And that, I think that's one of the things. Talk about that a little bit. I think there is what I call the social media oftentimes is a highlight reel of people's lives, right? And what I think any of us know is that that is very difficult um to do and being consistent over time. But being your authentic self, being real, like maybe, like for example, Keith, you are a fisherman, like you love to fish, like creating content around that is authentic because that's just something like people don't know. For example, you have reels that you collect, that you go out shoot, fishing on a regular and consistent basis. Like that's real, as opposed to trying to be something you're not. So, what are some things that you're seeing about authenticity? I ask that because you guys, so oftentimes you're getting brands reaching out to you, say, hey, we have a campaign and we have some athletes we're looking for. And so that authenticity, right? Because we know that's so key. How are you seeing that come through? And what's, again, because we're talking about here, things to avoid. What tip would you have about things to avoid?
Yeah, I think the more somebody feels like they know you,
Yeah.
you know, your line of questioning is great because, think about if you're in a hiring position at a company and you got two candidates in front of you, all right, and on paper you see one person and their personality really doesn't shine through that
Right.
much in paper, right? And as you're talking to them, you don't get a good feel for who they are as a person. Second person comes in, they've got a great resume on paper and they're talking to you and you get a great feeling for their personality. Okay, chances are that second person is likely going to get hired because
Right.
there's more of a connection. There's
Yeah.
something resonates because their personality is coming through. It's the same thing with using social media for NIL. All
Right.
right. These companies that are out there hiring or fans that want to buy merchandise, they want to connect with that student athlete. They
Yeah.
want to feel like they know that student athlete and they don't want to throw their support behind somebody that potentially is going to make a bad decision or be a risk and do something that makes them look bad for
Right. Right.
supporting you. Right.
Right. No, I
And
love it. No, I think that's so true. And I think too, like on that authenticity trip, I think on the brand side, when someone is themselves, then the brand content plays out better on the influencer's channel, right? Like
yes.
if you're, so let's say, because then what happens, like just making this show, we go from theory to actionable steps. If again we use an example of you and the fisher, being a fisherman, then hey, a fishing company may say, or a local outdoor store near you, or the Parks and Rec board, whomever, may come to you say, hey, Keith, would you be a part, involved this campaign? We'd love to help get youth out to the creeks and in the rivers and in the streams. That, and then you're already doing that. That's going to work because people already know, hey, Keith is a fisherman, right? It's not just something that you were asked, in the business on the sports marketing side, they call it label slapping, right? Which is when you just take something and just put the sponsor's name on there. And we know that that's really gone away because of what we're saying, like brand authenticity works. I want to talk to you about contracts. And speaking of brands, the creative briefs been asked that brands have, because one of the things I think is that oftentimes people don't always know that if a brand is going to give you money, right, they're going to usually have a specific ask. What advice do you have on understanding contracts and what's being asked of them, and how can athletes be aware of that? Because I would see that as a trip up potentially for athletes and influencers.
Yeah, there's a couple notable things. You know, if we were to bullet point this, one, duration.
Mm.
You know, what's the duration of the contract?
Yep.
Two, is this an exclusive deal?
What
Yeah,
does that mean? When you say exclusive, Keith, what do you mean?
great, great question. All right, so you know, going back to some of the talks we've had about shoe companies, if you do a deal with a shoe company, you know, they're likely going to say you're exclusive to us. You can't do a deal
Mm.
with another shoe company, and it
Yep.
might even leach into apparel or you know something else. You know, another popular example with exclusivity. You know, one example I like to give is you know you do a deal with a local mom and pop dining cafe, a coffee shop, or something like that, and they put in the terms of the contract, hey, you're exclusive to us for
Yeah.
beverages.
Yep.
Well, okay, I get it, but we're all one step away from being that next top 10, you know, play of the day and getting that huge Gatorade
Right.
contract. You don't want to come back and say,
Right.
I can't take the Gatorade deal because I got
Right.
this exclusive deal with the local coffee shop
Right.
or
Right.
any type of beverage, you know. So exclusivity, if somebody wants that, they should be paying more, you know,
Right.
because you're potentially cutting off something in the future, you know. So that's really kind of the second point. Duration is really important. That was my first term and condition. I really like to talk about um, athletes. They're planning year to year, right?
Right.
If you're,
Absolutely.
you know, from your freshman year to your sophomore year, let's break this down because
Yeah.
you're planning to get better, right? You are practicing, you're working hard, you're going to be better, you're going to earn more starting time. You're hoping to get more scholarship. You're hoping to increase your market, your follower count, everything about you as an athlete, as from that freshman to sophomore year, and you can, you know, shift the years out however you want. But
Right.
everything you're doing is from a year to year basis
Right.
because you're really trying to, you know, make yourself better from year to year. So it's always baffling to me when I see some of these, you know, student athletes that'll sign multi-year agreement. It's the same rate. It's
Sure.
like a flat rate for 3 years. That it doesn't take into account like all the hard work and effort that you're going to go through the years. You know, either it should escalate over the years. So
Yep.
when you're looking at duration, you know, hopefully it escalates. If not, a 1 year deal is sufficient,
Right.
and you know you can come back on the second year deal, provided you went out and crushed it on that first year. You can demand more on that second deal,
Yep.
which is
So
what,
basically, you're saying so people need to read their contracts,
yeah,
understand what's being asked of them, right? Deliverables, length, when is it due? Right. That's a huge thing. If you went to an event on Tuesday and a professional team said, "Hey, um, XYZ student athlete, would you come out to our arena? We're going to give you the VIP experience that our premium ticket holders have, and then could you do a video and a photo afterwards and have it out within 24 hours, right? And then because then if we don't have it out in
yeah.
24 to 48 hours or whatever the contract says, that could be an issue.
And I think student athletes really need to think about this too, because if you're doing a deal with a national brand, chances are they got a marketing department.
Sure.
They've got folks that are going to tell you exactly what needs to be done, right?
Absolutely. And
Now,
they'll generally send that over via a creative brief, right? A creative brief for those is just basically a document that says, hey, as Keith, as you're saying, this is what we're looking for. This is an execution that you should have.
so no, on contrary to that, think about if you did a deal with a small little local diner.
Right. Yeah.
They don't have a marketing department.
We don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
The owner, maybe the cashier is running their Instagram page
Right.
or something like that. They're going to have that savvy
Yeah.
of telling the student athlete exactly what to do. So it's incumbent upon the student athlete to think about this and to be very creative and say, how am I going to execute on this and
Right.
make this such a success that this diner is not only going to have me do this first deal, but they're going to come back to me for a second and a third
Yep.
deal. You know,
Yep.
how do I
I
deliver?
love that. I love that because what you're saying is so true. Because one of the things too that you want to be good at doing this, and then also too, if you're doing all the things you're talking about, the end goal then too is that if the content works, that they come back to you. right? So that you're not searching for constant new partners all the time because
Yep.
either the content didn't work to their level of pleasure, or maybe the execution wasn't what they asked for, right? Didn't give them what they want, didn't turn it in the format that they wanted, right? Like they might have wanted a carousel for Instagram, but you didn't do it, and now we can't go back and capture it. So these are all some of the things, just like going to the NBA, the NFL, or any becoming a professional, anything like these are the details that a content creator needs to know to be a professional content creator, right, Keith?
Yeah, absolutely. And I going back to the bullet pointed list. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Let's
Bring
also
us home, Keith.
let's talk about what happens if the deal goes, it's not what the student athlete thought it was going to be, or
Right.
all of a sudden it takes a little more time than what they had expected from the get-go.
Absolutely.
How do they cancel out? How do they opt out of that deal? All right. And I think this is eye-opening for a lot of student athletes. Some deals you can opt out very easily and you're just done. There's no penalty. There's nothing that you have to pay back or anything. But what if there is a penalty? If you're doing a
Right.
deal with a big national agency and they've invested 3 months into photo shoots and video shoots and branding and working up a marketing campaign with
Right.
the student athlete, and they're just about to launch, and the student athlete says, I don't have enough time to really do this. I don't want to do
Mm.
this anymore.
Is that
All right.
something that you think sometimes, Keith, before you kind of do you see that sometimes?
I've heard student athletes mention it and talk about it.
Sure.
I've not actually seen it yet, but I think it is something important to consider.
Right.
Life
So
changes.
basically, when you're being asked of something, calculating, is this something I can realistically execute out, knowing that you've got practice, you've got school life, of course, you have social life, you've got
Right.
all the things and the time constraints. So, no, I think that's a valid takeaway.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want to try to opt out of something and be trapped into it, and
Right.
then let's say that national agency says, "Hey, we hear you, but we invested a lot into this. You're
Right.
going to have to pay us back."
Yeah.
Ooh,
Well, that's so key. So the key point of this, guys, read your contracts, thoroughly understand the deliverables, and then of course manage your earnings responsibly, the tax part of it, and hopefully saving you can have your own people, because the goal too is that we want people to be able to live the life of their dreams. So if you love this content and you like this, we ask you to smash that like button, so that more people can find us and that YouTube and all of the streams know that we're doing a good job. All right, Keith, as we move on, so one of the things that I really, really want to talk about, and I'm so excited, and if you're joining us now, we're helping student athletes live the life of their dreams by understanding NIL and building a powerful personal brand to live out their dreams. And we're going to talk now about some of the real mistakes that athletes make, right? And I think this is so important because sometimes those are the things that keep us from being elite, being at the top level. And I'm really excited to have you here alongside me in your 2.5 to almost 3 decades of experience working with student athletes, helping them to realize their dreams. It's so very important. And as I always talk about, Keith, organic social media is the most untapped leveraged opportunity. I keep saying this all the time. Most people are one video from going viral, or 6 months to a year of being consistent, of living the tool of their life. So one of the things I want to talk about, and we talk about this all the time, and that part in both of those equations is consistency, right? And I want you to talk about from your side of it and what you're seeing, because one of the things I'm often asked by people, they say, "Oh man, Jay, I hear all this talk about social media. You're always talking about it, and there's social media. I don't understand how people make money." And then they say, "Hey, can you look over what we're doing and give us some insights?" And I'll go to their page and I'll go to their Instagram and I'll go to their Twitter, and their last post was 4 days ago. You know what I mean? And it's halfway through the month and they've got 3 posts. And so a lot of people just underestimate the amount of just being consistent. What are some of the things you're seeing as well? Because you're on the brand side, working with brand agencies. You're also working with student athletes. You're working with the athletic administration and coaches. How important is consistency in your mind?
I think you're hitting on the issue here, and let me just take it to the next level. Okay,
Yeah,
you're talking about consistency.
yeah,
You hit upon the post. Okay, so I think as student athletes approach social media, and if they're not posting a lot, okay, people may follow, but
yeah.
they might not pay attention to you that much if you're not putting much out there. But if you are putting stuff out there on a consistent basis, not only are they going to follow you, but they're going to interact with you.
Right, right.
All right? And so I think on the brand side, follower counts are very important. Sure, they are. But the interaction level, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's just as, if not more important. Um,
No,
you
I
know,
I think you're right, and a quick example comes to mind, Keith. A lot of people, I would say the one of the greatest trollers of all time, and by no means promoting trolling. It's just this, again, being himself, is Kevin Durant, right? Team USA has been playing in the in the Olympics. And Kevin Durant, of course, we know he was found to have a burner account. Now he just runs out of his main account. Well, somebody had criticisms of their game, and Kevin Durant went on there and asked the person a question and said, "Where are you from?" And you say, "Well, why is he doing this?" Well, let me tell you what that's doing. That's actually making Kevin Durant more popular, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because so many people, some people are not being authentic as to who they are. And I think if you understand that that's Kevin Durant, you could better like him. You don't have to agree with him jumping on and asking. And he wasn't, the tone was fine. He was just like, "Where are you from?" Because the person was criticizing, the close games that they've been having. We all know the world's catching up to Team USA. But Kevin Durant comments on other people's posts about basketball. I mean, so if Kevin Durant, with, 10 plus million followers on Instagram, has the time to jump into comments, respond to people, I mean, that is absolutely incredible, and I think he's just being himself, to your
yeah,
point.
that's a great. Honestly, I did not know all that about Kevin Durant. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it makes him popular with people, and then, what we've seen since then, people are therefore more, commenting, on his things and engaging, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
you're talking about, that because social media, people forget, is the dialogue back and forth. That is the reason why, if you look even in the news media side, internet personalities are more popular than whole networks, right? Because you can interact and have a two-way dialogue on social media, as opposed to broadcast news is just pushing out a message. And so I think you are so that is a hot tip right there, which is engagement and having dialogue. I mean, you hit that one out the park.
Yeah, I was recently, talking to a company, and they were looking at a couple different athletes,
Yeah.
and just to clarify this a little bit more, they were looking these are relatively small deals in the grand scheme of things, but they were looking at two different athletes. One had 10,000 followers, but not a lot of interactions. They posted very
Sure.
irregularly,
Yeah.
and just not consistent.
Yeah.
The other person had about 1,000 followers, but every post that they did had a very high interaction count
Yeah.
because they were putting something up that was interesting. To use your phrase, authentic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people connected. They wanted to be part of that conversation. So follower count alone wasn't persuading this
Right.
company. They were looking at, okay, I want to know, like, if somebody's saying something, if a student athlete is saying something, how many people are actually taking the time to
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
you know? And so interaction count matters. Being interesting, being authentic, getting people to want to engage with you
Yeah.
matters. It's not just always about the follower count.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, you can't just post and leave. It's having that two-way dialogue, and not necessarily having to respond to everyone. Sometimes it might just be hitting the like button. You can use emojis. There's different things that we can do. So I think you are so very important. I think consistently so important. To your point, I also think engaging with the community. And then the other thing, Keith, that I think is so huge. If we look at the people who are best in class, we look at the Kai Cenats of the world. We look at if we look at the people who are really doing incredible things, they understand their audience. And I think that's so key. And I want you to also hit on this point, because understanding that, why are people following you and what is the draw? And I think sometimes when the people are really successful, I love talking about Kai just because he's the top streamer of the world. And we look at, is it Jake Paul, right? I mean, this is someone who started making videos when he's a teenager. Now he had the cancel fight with Tyson. He's got a energy drink that's literally pushing the big brand makers to rethink how they're doing things. And a lot of that is because they understand, look, people are coming to me for entertainment. This is what I mean by understanding your audience. If you understand, like, hey, my particular audience, they work a 9 to 5, or they're going to school and they're grinding it out. And my personal brand is, I love dancing. And I dance to my teammates because that's what you guys do. And you're doing different things, or you try adventures. Then maybe understanding that group person who's following you may not like something else that's totally different, that has nothing, that's off brand. And not that you can't be yourself, but just understanding that. Keith, how important do you also feel that understanding your audience is?
I think it's vital, and I think being responsive with your audience and making them feel important
Yeah.
and making them feel heard is important. One of the examples, I'm going to use him as an example because I think he does an excellent job with this, and somebody near and dear to both of us is Robert Griffin III.
Yeah.
He posts
Griff.
content, or he posts comments, he posts opinions about different things.
Yeah.
People will chime in, and you will see him on a consistent basis.
Absolutely.
In the comments respond, and it's in a very respectful way. He's respecting other people's opinion, but he does a very phenomenal job with this.
He does.
And I think this goes back to school. If one person's got the question, there's going to be other people in the classroom that get the same question, right?
Yeah.
And so, taking the time to answer and to facilitate conversation with that one person is that's probably a question other people have on their minds too. So, if you're thinking of that question of a popular sports star that you're following, and they're taking the time to address that one-on-one with another person that's following them, you start to, it's a further connection.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, to like you said with RG3, obviously a lot of people know he was also an All-American 400-meter hurdler while he was in college at Baylor. And during the Olympics now, during different times when they have big races, if there's some issues, he brings his insights. Like, hey guys, in that race, this person, they drug their leg off to the side instead of going over instead of going over the hurdles. And then, even I saw him, jump into, we know the success that the WNBA and women's basketball is having, and being someone, right, who was a phenomenal high school athlete and developed himself into be a Heisman. He knows all that goes with it and building it, right? And so I love it because he has some hot takes that, like, for example, what Caitlin Clark was going through, what Angel Reese, what all these different WNBA vets are going through. And he has, and to your point, people love it. And then, right, you go on ESPN and said, hey, Robert Griffin chimed into the conversation, right?
Yeah, and that's what it's engaging.
Yeah.
It's thought-provoking, and I see this from a lot of the top content producers out there. They put stuff out there. It's not just, hey, what's up?
Right.
But they're offering something that makes people think.
Right.
Maybe I think some people put stuff out there that is purposefully just to get a rise out of people.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
But I think there are enough people out there that are putting something out there. And, to the example of RG3, not only, his football accolades, but his track insight is phenomenal.
And he's since become one of the top track announcers, right?
Yeah.
But if you go back to your point and look at his social media accounts, he actually started talking about it. For those you don't know, he's on the NCAA track coverage, covering some of the big meets. And to your point, Keith, he actually started his commentary. He go live. For example, I follow him on TikTok. He would go live on the different platforms, like giving real-time takes after races, to your point. And then that, along with other things, led to his current opportunity. So I think your take is so valid.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the Cleveland Cavaliers player. former. This is we're going in the Wayback Machine. Is it Brad Doherty that
Mhm.
is?
Yeah.
Isn't he doing stuff with NASCAR or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But,
believe he's like a team captain or coach, but I forget the exact term.
but
I'll
he,
look
he
it up
was
while you're talking.
he was doing a little bit of analysis. I recall seeing that, and I was like, wait, okay, seeing these different facets to people is fascinating.
Right.
I know this from the end user experience
Yeah.
as a customer. You know, while I might not be into car racing, I'm going to take a few moments because, I do like basketball and I know who he
Right.
is. But you're getting to see different sides of these different people that are out.
Absolutely.
I think that leads into the authenticity piece as to who people are.
Right.
You
Right.
pointed out
Right.
you pointed out several times, Jay. I enjoy this NIL stuff. I enjoy college
Yeah.
athletics. Yeah, I'm tremendously into fishing and giving back to the community through the fishing. It's just a different side to me, and I'm not just here to do college athletics,
Right.
but I've got these other sides, and I think the more student athletes can show these different sides to them,
Yeah.
the more you're going to catch.
All
And the
right, I
more,
looked it up. Brad Doherty is a primary owner of a NASCAR team that participated in the Daytona 500. They had a lot of success last year. For those of you who don't know, I mean, like you said, he was a 5-time All-Star with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So no, you're spot on. And then I think he played. Is it right at UNC? Is that right?
oh, oh,
He's from North Carolina, home of NASCAR. I'm talking about the roots. We're talking about the old. Some of you guys may not know about. We're talking about some of those old dirt road tracks of NASCAR before the big tracks.
and if we make a mistake here and say he's from UNC and maybe he went to Duke or NC State, we're gonna get some hate
All right.
mail.
We will not say where he went to school. We will say that he definitely grew up in North Carolina. That I know to be a fact.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
And I did look it up. He went to North Carolina 82 to 86. All right.
Okay,
So I think, back to your point, I'm really good at distracting us, is being yourself, because I think that building a personal brand is being yourself 24/7, 365, and never wavering, right? Money and fame don't change you. They just reveal more of who you are. And it's really like a binary thing. It's either you're authentic or you're not. And I think some of the biggest stake is that people alter themselves, their true selves, in a way, instead of staying true to who they are, right? And you should always stay true to who you are, and that is a great brand. And just so anyone home that's asking, Keith, what is a brand? A brand is an emotional connection to a person, place, or thing, right? Why do I buy Nike Air Force Ones as a shoe that I love, right? That's what a brand is. Why do some people go to Starbucks instead of going to the corner store that has a 99-cent coffee, right? Those are a brand. It is emotional connection. And so the way you do that is being authentically yourself. And I think is content creators. And it doesn't matter if you're a student athlete, it doesn't matter if you're a coach, it doesn't matter if you're a real estate agent, like being authentically yourself and talking about the things that are interesting to you is where I think success comes with building a personal brand.
great explanation. I love that. As a huge advocate for coffee, the 99-cent store coffee is actually, I think sometimes very, very good.
It's very good sometimes, Keith. It's very good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go with the Starbucks though. It's something familiar. It's a name thing.
Right.
I agree with you. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. One of the things we talked about that, and we create a lot of content about this, because one of the things that people are understanding this is understanding what they sign. I mean, we've talked in other pieces of content about this. For example, we've even seen celebrities who co-signed concerts and promoted certain NFT type of financial instruments that then went down, and they've then filed lawsuits and gained lawsuits and been awarded settlements off of their involvement. And part of that is understanding what they're signing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the phenomenons I'm seeing with NIL, and this we're going to get into the weeds here, but some of these investment firms, they will sign college student
Yeah.
athletes for
That's
future.
that's big because the whole just being fully transparent, right? The whole crypto, NFT, that whole
Yeah,
that space is growing. And so there's a lot of people out there looking for opportunities and they have funding.
yeah. I'm thinking of like Fernando Tatis Jr.
Sure.
He signed a deal at some point in his career where he allowed an investment fund to capitalize on any future professional earnings. And I
Right.
know, as you mentioned, there was lawsuits after the fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
after he started to blow up, become very popular, very good, very lucrative. But I'm seeing stuff like that where
Oh,
student athletes aren't reading all the fine print. What
yeah.
exactly does this mean? Not just a month from now. What does this mean 2 years from now?
Right.
And, planning for success. We've hit on that so many times
Yeah.
in this show. How do you plan for success? You don't sign a contract just for the today and the next month, but how does this look a year from now,
Right.
2 years from now?
Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned you and I have talked many times. One of the people that we both really have a great appreciation for is the Shaquille O'Neal. Obviously, Big Aristotle. He's known by so many names. But one of the things that he talks about, and I love it. I saw this podcast that he was on. He was just saying he never invests in things that he doesn't understand. Right? I'm gonna say that
Yeah.
again. He never invests in things that he doesn't understand. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that once people explain it to him, he does a process to investigate things and if he doesn't understand it after that process, he doesn't get involved with it.
That makes sense. I mean, I I've totally embraced that. I get it. I have had the opportunity to meet him a long, long, long time
Oh,
ago.
wow.
Oh, phenomenal human being. I
Do
was
you have a
really
picture? I wish
impressed.
you had a picture. Do you have a picture?
This is before camera phones and
Oh,
all
man,
that.
I'd love to
It
see that.
was huge. This is early '90s, so
Okay. Okay. So
yeah,
you meet Shaq. So you meet Shaq.
yeah. He's a phenomenal human being. So he's been a great follow for me. And I think it really leads to this whole NIL conversation. I had a chance encounter with him, established a connection,
Yeah.
immediately became a fan, follow. When I hear him say something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop and
Yeah.
listen because,
Yeah.
you know, all because of a chance interaction. And yeah, a phenomenal way to look at NIL
Yeah.
is, taking these little connections you got. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the one sidetracking us now.
No, no, no. You're doing great. I mean, he's someone who's built an empire. I read somewhere, of course, we don't know if it's accurate unless the person says it themselves, but publications online say he's worth north of $400 million. I mean, even if they're wrong by a little bit, that's or even a lot, that's still a huge net worth.
Yeah. 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 He's a golly, man. I would like to have just a little dose of that success that Shaq has. He's done a great job with
Yeah,
his brand, though. He's aligned himself with some very worthwhile projects,
yeah,
companies, headlines.
great.
But I think he is very authentic.
Yeah,
I think we all get a good feeling as to who he is.
yeah,
Businessman. He
yeah.
obviously got some basketball success, but he's funny.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think you're right, and he kind of leads to my next point. One of the big mistakes that I see is that content creators are making is not being truly authentic and transparent. One of the keys that I see is that people are not being transparent. What does that mean? So it's just really meaning that when people are watching, they really understand what's going on. And when you're transparent with people and you disclose what the instructions are and what's going on, it develops closer, better relationships, and you have integrity. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're being paid, um, or compensated to have an experience or to review a product, you're better off disclosing. Like, I this one content creator, I love it. He's a guy, he actually was a pool cleaner, regular content guy. He's got about 500,000 followers now. And he started like doing comedy during COVID because he always wanted to do comedy, but he, has built up a pretty good career as a pool cleaner. And it's kind of hard to back off being a cool pool cleaner. Because he's having this success, and then he built up an audience, and he started reviewing products on TikTok Shop. And he's like, hey guys, I love what I do, and I love storytelling, and people have been asking me to review products, but I'm not going to review everything. I'm only going to go over the things that I think are valuable. He has a testing process that he has, and he turns down a lot of things, but he's like, look, I'm not going to just review things to make money. And then if you go to the comments, Keith, people are like, man, I respect you, brother. That's so. And he was saying, like, I've been in sales jobs before in this pool industry where they want me to promote things or do certain things to people's pools that make us more money. He's like, I left those jobs. And what's happening now is last month, and I'm only giving one person's story, I'm not saying it's what people can do. He showed his TikTok Shop dashboard. He made $40,000 last month reviewing products. What is he reviewing? Tools for pools, a cooler for pools, the chemicals that you can use. So what's the key to transparency? People know what it is they're doing, so they can opt into it because they feel like they know the story.
Yeah, and to this point, I think this is where the FTC comes into play.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. All right, they got an amazing document out there that's called Social Influencing 101. It's a 5-page document, very good. As I explained to a lot of student athletes, you want to be the professional in these deals. So understanding what FTC is, and when you're being compensated to do something similar to what your buddy might be doing. If a company asks you to do something online, you're actually required by federal law to be, if you're being compensated in some way, shape, or form. And so,
and some of the platforms want you denoted in the back end, and you can ask the people on your campus. You don't have to worry about how to do this. And all the campuses have resources to help you. It'll say oftentimes, if you look, you may not have paid attention. Sometimes it'll say a promoted item or a partnership. It just depends. Each platform has their own way of doing that.
Yes, but knowing how to do those things. I mean, think about this from Jay. If you're the owner of a coffee shop.
Right.
I'm a student athlete. I come to you and I say, hey, look, I'm going to do these TikTok videos. I'm going to do these IG reels for you. I'm going to do all this stuff for you. And I tell you, hey, look, I have to say this.
Yeah.
The video. Now to that small diner, they might not even thought of that. They might not even have known about that. But as the student athlete says, hey, I have to do this, this, and this to make this legitimate. Okay. All of a sudden, that small diner's looking at that student athlete in a very different way, saying, wait a second, this person actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And here's the great thing, right? The consumers are already accustomed to being advertised to, right? During sporting matches now, even the medical timeouts are sponsored by medical organizations, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, people don't I think one of the things that we're doing with this information that you're sharing, which is so valuable, Keith, is like, don't worry, because I think this is what you're getting to is like, I can relate to this as a content creator, is people are worried like, oh man, if I tell them, people won't want to buy. It's like, no. Like you said, you're required to do it. That's a one. Yes. The two, it actually makes the relationship better because right? Like each of our friendships and the relationships that we have, you'd rather someone tell you what it is up front rather than try to sneak it in. Because that's kind of what you're doing. If one, it is not compliant to not disclose, and we're definitely saying you must disclose. But there are people, because we have to be transparent, there are people in the spaces, not necessarily athletes, but there's content creators out there, and that's been some of the issues where they've been compensated for things and not disclosed to the user. So number one, that's not compliant. Number two, it's not a great relationship.
No, you want to build up that trust with people that are listening to you, and by not being transparent. Yeah, you kind of kill that trust, and
I love it. I love it.
It's kind of like going back to dating. You lie once, now you've created that little sliver of doubt.
Right. Well, you should know. You're happily married, so yeah, you know better than anyone. Um, so one of the things too that and we've talked about this, and we'll continue to talk about because it's so important. One of the things, and I'm gonna allow you to talk about it, is many athletes rush into agreements without proper guidance and understanding what should athletes be aware of. Because here's a great thing that I've learned from talking to you: the schools oftentimes have the resources.
Yes. I, I tell student athletes all the time. Yes, it is very exciting to get your first
Yeah,
NIL deal. I hear you. Very exciting to get that first deal or second deal, and you know, but take your time. Understand
right,
exactly what it is before just signing and saying, "I got my first NIL deal." Okay,
right,
great, 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 great.
yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, you don't want to be the first one to like just sign a deal and then
yeah,
discover, afterwards, ooh, I could have negotiated that a little better,
yeah.
or I didn't mean to agree to do this. So understanding it at the start is really, really important. And I think, as student athletes approach this and they kind of create their inner circle, yeah, having
Right,
that little circle of friends or resources. It might be the school compliance officer. It
right.
might be the NIL liaison. It might even be the coach. It might even
Yeah,
be the business professor.
yeah,
You know, having that little circle of people to talk to
yeah,
is important. Now, I've talked to a couple student athletes, and this is a fear, and I think this is misguided fear. But one student athlete told me, I don't want to tell people about a deal and share, what that deal is, because then they're going to come in and take it away from me, or they're going
right.
to pitch the company, something that might be a little bit better, for themselves, and steal this opportunity from me. I think that's a little misguided, to be honest. I think companies are offering the deal because there's something about that specific person that is very, very interesting, and
Yeah,
something that's got them hooked. So I think it don't have that fear. Talking to your friends. Hey, if I talk to them and share, try to get their thoughts, they're going to sneak in there and take it away from you. I've not seen it
yeah.
happen. Hopefully, it
For
never
sure. Yeah,
happens. But I
yeah.
don't know.
And here's a great thing, right? Getting more information, developing better relationships, and accessing the resource around them gives you a place of comfort because hey, I've got knowledge and a lot of this. And so if you like what you're seeing, if you like this content, smash that like button and follow us on social media. So because what you're getting at is that there are nuances. But we're here to help you walk you through that process of how to avoid all these pitfalls, right? Because I always say, Keith, that if I can look around and someone that's like me has done this before, then I can do it. That I just need to ask the right questions and surround myself with the right people.
Yeah, I think having that inner circle is important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. I love what you're saying. Let's talk. One of the things we're going to talk a lot about this. I think the what I'm seeing is the number one mistake that athletes are making is
Mhm.
not realizing the totally underutilized opportunity with social organic media. Social organic media, and I've said this so many times, I'll keep saying it. You're one post away from going viral. You're 6 months to a year from being consistent, right? And therefore, for a lot of people, it's not as far as you think. It's right in front of you, and part of that is being consistent. And we're going to help you with resources on how can I create content, right? How can I just naturally tell about yourself? And so, I think that is the biggest opportunity that people make a mistake on. It's not an understanding that time is moving and taking advantage. You talk all the time about the life, the life of a student athlete, and that's any content creator, right? Because some people, like I would have told, would have gotten on TikTok back 3 years ago. It would they'd be in a different situation. But that still being said, the best time to get started is when today.
Jay, can I ask you a few questions about what you mean by organic? Because
Yeah,
I know, sometimes, organic that doesn't resonate with some people. Okay.
yeah,
So what do you mean when you say organic? Because to me, it feels like, hey, it's just a natural moment. on
Right.
social media where somebody, people react to it, right?
Right.
And it just goes from there
Yeah.
rather than something that feels forced
Yeah.
and natural and somebody's putting it out there
Yeah.
just to get that reaction, but it just feels so
Yeah.
forced.
So this is a great question. This you just asked the jewel of a question. So in media, there's what's called paid media and earned media. Paid media in general are when you're buying advertisements, product placements, buying endorsements, right? Like we're thinking about the old yellow pages, we're thinking about commercials on TV, billboard ads, digital ads. Those are all paid. And traditionally, right, that's how businesses advertised, and it drove everything, right? So much so that if you looked around in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, because the yellow pages were alphabetized, companies would call themselves ABC Company because ABC was at the front of the yellow pages, right? And that's what you had to do. And you had to have an inordinate amount of money to do that, to place the ads. And then the other thing, to be a media company, you needed a lot of money to create content. So two things have happened now when we talk about social organic. That is content that's made on social media using this phone that shoots in 4K. Your average cell phone shoots in 4K, which is well beyond anything prior to maybe 5 or 10 years ago that was available, right? To create a movie, you needed, $1 million of equipment and staff. Now today you have this. This shoots just as well 4K. And so when we talk about social organic, it is creating content that you make yourself and you become your own publisher. And it's you are putting it on the platform. Never in the history of the world has there been an opportunity for anyone to make something for free, right? Meaning with this, that can go organic and reach 2, 4, 6, 10 million people with one piece of content. So that is social organic content.
That's a great explanation, and you're taking me back with that yellow page example.
Yeah, right.
Wow,
Think about
that's
and it was expensive, right, Keith?
oh yeah, oh yeah. No, but yeah, you still see some remnants of the past. Sometimes when you're driving around, you see the, you know, a locksmith, and it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure that company is a
Yeah,
little bit of an older company because they put that A specifically in the name. You know,
absolutely.
that was a product of the yellow pages.
Yeah, well, but that just shows us how powerful and how many resources. And so, when I talk about this, I think this is a tremendous opportunity. And I think the things that we have to do is just be one of the great things about being a content creator. And my next thing, and I'm staying on this one, but I'm gonna add another jewel because you made me think of it right now. Is is one big mistake is not having gratitude. And gratitude is the understanding and the appreciation that I have this tremendous opportunity in front of me to create content that 20 years ago, 30 years ago wasn't possible, right? If you wanted to be, we talk about social media content creators like Drewski. He's a guy who now has a multi-million person following, the Jake Pauls of the world, the Kai Cenats. Those people had to go to Hollywood to be an actor. These are people, Drewski, real quick, is a young man who during COVID lived in the suburbs of Atlanta, always wanted to be a comedian, started writing jokes himself. He merely started writing skits, right? So think about, what did you have to do? Well, back in the Eddie Murphy days, the big days of the 80s and 90s, you had to move to New York City from Cleveland, St. Louis, wherever you lived, go there, make it on their show that thousands and thousands of people wanted to be on, to be Saturday Night Live, to launch your career. What can you do today? You can do this. So Drewski started writing skits every single day, and they became so popular. Now he's got his own series, and he's one of the most influential people out there. And I talk about him because he's relatable to what many people can do. So I think the biggest mistake is not understanding the tremendous opportunity in front of you and appreciating that.
Yeah, no, that's great example. A great example. Very funny guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. He does.
yeah,
Matter of fact, he's so influential. He has a saying that many of student athletes, many people saying, standing on business, right? So he made a whole skit. There was one skit about standing on business. Now, it's become so big. People around the world say, I'm standing on business. You'll turn on CNN, ESPN, you'll go on social media. People in Germany, people in Taiwan, people in other places around the world are saying, I'm standing on business. That's the opportunity that's in front of you.
That's awesome.
That's what we're talking about. That's why we're here today, to help you start today and not say tomorrow, to help people stop what I call doom scrolling, which is when you're sitting in bed, and we all do it. But one of the big things is getting started today. So I say, understanding the huge opportunity of social organic. I also say being appreciative of the opportunity, because when we're appreciative and we're humble and we say, man, like, I don't have to make content today, I get to make content. Like, I literally jumped up out of the bed this morning and I was like so excited to film this content with you and to talk about these things, to help athletes, to help coaches, to help individuals out there who are saying, man, like, I want to be a superstar real estate agent. I want to be an insurance person, right? Like, I want to be a coach, right? And we know if you're a coach with the following, or if you're going to be an art, you say, I want to be an artist. Doesn't matter what you want to do. If you build a community, if you tell your story, you have the tremendous opportunity that has never existed in the history of the world.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I will. I've had a long career in sports. I love it. You know, I'm humbled. I'm grateful that I've had. I keep waiting for this ride to end at some point.
It's not. We're just getting started, Keith.
Well, you know, but I just feel blessed. This is what I get to do. It's not what I have to do. It's what I get to do. This is amazing.
Right.
You know, to be able to do this type of stuff and to, you know, be a part of, you know, some of the stories that I've been part of in my career. But gratitude and just being humble about it.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it.
Well, a guy I love, on the side, I'm a huge aviation space nerd. You know, I grew up, my dad was in the military, and so I grew up on watching all of these aircrafts taking off. And one of the guys I love is what is this? Is it Neil Tice deGrasse? I always mess his name up. What's his name? How do you say his name?
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. And I was watching a speech that he was talking about. And I love him because he's really good at taking the complicated of science and galaxies and outer space and making it where someone like myself, who doesn't have that kind of educational training, can understand it. And he said the odds of being born are between 1 and 40 million and 1 and 400 trillion. So the fact that you and I are alive in and of itself is a huge miracle. Think about that. And that we're alive in this moment, right? Like, instead of 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So, you know, when we talk about that appreciation, what do you think of when I tell you that number between 400 million and 4 trillion? That's the odds anyone's born.
That's amazing. And I think, okay, this is such an unscripted, unplanned moment on Brand&Athlete because here we are talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay.
Well, we're really talking about gratitude, but go ahead. I just want to make sure people understand what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful to be alive. Yes, 100% grateful to be in the position we're in.
Yeah,
grateful. Yes, but I mean, when you mention his name, I'm thinking about he's an incredibly intelligent man.
Yeah.
He's done an amazing thing, but he's done a great job of authenticity for himself and being humble. And it's led to other really cool things that I'm sure were not planned for him. You know, a huge fan of the Big Bang Theory. He's made several guest appearances in there that were absolutely hysterical, you know, but that's just him being authentic with who he is every day on social media, whatnot, you know, becoming a name, and opportunities come about because of him being authentic, being humble, being grateful. You know, people want to work with him. People want to interact.
To your point, which I think you're alluding to, I just want to make sure I bring it home, is that he is on so many podcasts. I'm talking about some of the biggest names out there, the biggest platforms on that side. And then he has TV shows, right, where he's teaching people science. He's like, you know, America's Mr. Science person, to your point, because of that.
Yeah. Phenomenal example. of being humble, being grateful,
Yeah.
and transitioning, how that opens up the door for other opportunities. And I
Yeah.
think as student
It,
athletes, look at somebody like him
yeah.
and say that okay, every person has great examples, either
Right.
positive or negative,
Right.
as to where they are today. What's
Well,
worked for them, what's not.
and I think, to, kind of lead to our last thing that I'm seeing in terms of mistakes that people are making, right? We just went through not being appreciative and lacking humility and gratitude. And one of the things is not failing to understand um, the culture of each platform. Right. Like I think the days of just taking a piece of content and spraying it on each platform, right? Putting it on Facebook, Twitter, formerly X, and Instagram and YouTube. Like those days are gone. One of the things that any content creator needs to understand is becoming a tactician and practitioner of what works on each platform, right? How do Instagram stories work, and understanding that, hey, like that's actually the most highly consumed content every day, because who doesn't clicking through, and understanding that, for example, LinkedIn is arguably the most underpriced and overperforming content out there. Many people say, hey, Keith, I want to be a comedian. Keith, I want to be a public speaker. It's like, well, are you on LinkedIn? Are you creating content? Are you writing about it? Because people who are hiring and in that space are all on LinkedIn, and understanding what works there, and understanding, hey, I'm going to create YouTube videos and understand the tactics of what makes a thumbnail work. And so I think the biggest thing that we're talking about is failing to understand one of the biggest mistakes, failing to understand how each platform works in 2024 and 2025.
Great points. Great points. And I hope everybody's listening to this and understanding. Hit that like button, subscribe. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it. So there you have it. The biggest mistakes athletes are making with NIL and how to avoid them. I'm so appreciative to be with you, Keith, and walking student athletes and all the tremendous. I mean, you leveraging almost 3 decades of experience, and so I'm really appreciative. And that brings us to our next thing, right? If you're a student athlete, if you're someone out there who's been overwhelmed by the opportunities of creating content, leveraging your brand to live the life of your dreams with NIL, we're here to help you today. Keith Miller and he's had a lot of experiences and knowledge in this space. And so I'm really excited today, Keith, to talk about the power of storytelling and creating an irresistible brand narrative.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. And Jay Hicks, amazing person. He knows so much about the art of storytelling. I might have some good stories, but it's one thing to have good stories, but to know how to portray them and
Right.
to have some of that tactical advice. And I think, Jay, that's what you do a really, really good job of bringing to the table here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I think storytelling is so key. And I'm lucky. I come from a long line of storytellers. My mother actually grew up on a farm in Florida, and her grandfather, every night, they grew up on a farm with no TV, and every night he would tell stories. There, right? Because think about, there's no TV. They were very humble, had humble means, and so she developed and learned how to be a great storyteller from her grandfather, and then I've just picked that up from her. And so I think one of the things that storytelling does, and storytelling throughout time has been consistent, right? Storytelling is how we share our history, where we've been, and where we want to go. And one of the biggest things that is, if you're sitting at home, you say, man, I've got this dream. I want to be a comedian. I want to be an insurance broker. I want to be an athletic director one day. People have to know your story. And part
Mhm.
of that is sharing your story along the way. And one of the things, Keith, but before I turn over to you, is that the cornerstone to a great brand is the emotional connection to a person, place, or thing. And right, like how many people, when you go buy those Air Force Ones that I love, and everybody knows me, know I love Air Force Ones. My favorite right now, a cream pair that I've got special ordered. Um, but you think about Phil Knight selling shoes out of his back of his car, created that brand, right? With this high school, with this college coach at University of Oregon, it's because behind every great brand is a great story.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I love that story of Phil Knight, Steve
Yeah,
Fontaine. You know, I mean, yeah, it's a phenomenal story, and I
yeah,
think for folks who don't know, like if you know, you get enamored with the brand, and you know, sometimes you pull it up and you Google it or whatever search engine you use, and you try to understand more about it. And I think as student athletes, you have those highlight moments in your career on the field, on
right.
the court, wherever it is. People are going to do that with you,
Yeah,
and you know
yeah,
they see you out there, and all of a sudden they're going to pull you up. What are they going to see?
yeah.
And how does that lead to opportunities for you? I think
Yeah,
that's a
and in
great.
the book, I just want to say this because we brought it up and we're talking about Nike. If you ever want to read a great book on a great story, read Shoe Dog about Phil Knight. It's an absolutely I say any content creator should read that book. It doesn't matter if Pumas are your favorite shoe; they're a great shoe. I love Pumas too. I love Adidas. I love the Stan Smiths. Those are I have them in many colors, but it's a great book. It's a great narrative of a journey.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Converse All Stars if you need
Yeah, yeah. I love Converse. Go on.
Yeah,
Go on.
yeah. No, I had a pair of Pumas back in the grade school, and man, or Ruse.
Right.
I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
Walter Payton, Ruse,
Shy.
having that headband. Let's go,
Wow.
Ruse. There we
Yeah.
go. That's a blast from the past. There.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think is the number one question I'm sure you get because you and I talk about this all the time is how to create your brand narrative. And my thing that I always say is be yourself 24/7, 365, never waver. Money and
Yeah.
fame don't change you. Like, write that down somewhere. Be yourself 24/7, 365, and never waver. Money and fame don't change you. They reveal who you are. The reason why is that there is the tendency in all of us to look through our feeds and be the thing that you see out there. But we are all created uniquely and we are all special. And the greatest thing behind your brand, right? Because it's binary. You're either authentic or you're not. The greatest thing behind your brand is being who you are. And so when we talk about that, Keith, it's just documenting what your likes are. For me, I love space. I love aviation. I'm a sports dad. So if you go to my channels, I've got, just the training videos of starting from way back of getting up and doing workouts and enjoying and appreciating that journey and helping, my two sons live out their dreams. And that's part of my journey. It's not all of it. But I just talk about it because that's who I am. Because some people may say, well, you know what? I'm known to be a digital strategist. I shouldn't talk about that. And my thing is again, that's a binary viewpoint. And I would say yes, and so Keith, you are an NIL expert and an attorney and a fisherman and a dad and a person. And so one of the things now you do have to have the 4 or 5 things that you're talking about, but that is my biggest advice that I have to people is just being yourself all of the time.
Yeah, and I like to look at this as a tip of the iceberg type of thing.
Yeah.
We see the one little piece of J, visible, and then what else are we going to see as we continue to look? It's that little tip of the iceberg type of thing. We see, and you got a great story. You've done a lot of great things, and so I look at your content, I learn more and more about you. But the whole reason I started looking at your content was I saw the tip of the iceberg and I was
Yeah.
like, that
Yeah.
stands out. That stands out. I
Yeah.
noticed it and I want to learn more about it. And I think, authenticity, being transparent, all those types of things, as student athletes, if you're listening to this, understand
Yeah.
people are going to see one thing about you and
Yep.
you want to hook them. You want to bring them in to see the rest.
Right.
You want to make sure you've got all these different things. Are you just a basketball player? No, you're not
Right.
just a basketball
Right.
player. There's so
Absolutely.
many other tremendous things about you. Help people see those, help them connect with you.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's what your brand is what they see.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the biggest thing is really having a strategy, right? And the strategy is providing value. And I talk about this all the time, understanding what your value is to other people. For many athletes, it could be a respite from the rest of the, or relief from the rest of their life. Like a lot of people love entertainment, right? Like look at what people are consuming and understand that. I talk about some of the people. I like to give examples of people who are just really crushing it. Whether I always talk about Kai Cenat, you're probably tired of me talking about him, but this is someone who does 8-hour streams, right? I think he just broke a record the other day with 500,000 plus people on the stream. Why? Because he's someone who understands he just started out playing games online. A lot of student athletes today play games, and this resonates with them. Know that the latest football game just came out. I can't say their name, but you know who I'm talking about. And took that to saying, I'm an entertainer. And because he's built that, we've seen people like Kevin Hart on the stream recently, right? Great. Why? Because they get on there, they bring in the Drewski, who everybody knows I love Drewski, because I love someone who went from their home in the suburbs of America to being one of the top entertainers in the world in under 5 years, under 4 years. And you see some of the biggest rappers coming on the stream. You even see politicians coming on stream as we get into politics. And we're not getting into, I'm just saying that's the value of understanding their artists. So they don't get off into some people. I give an example. One streamer was asked to have a political candidate on, and they said, I'm not going to do it. Not because, you know what they said, Keith? I don't know anything about politics. So I don't want to talk about it, right? Because we know, to our point, you've got to know what you're talking about. And so I think that is the key, is understanding why people are following you. And that could be entertainment. It could be you play for a school that they love. It's their alumni. It's a school they want to go to. It's a school that they've chosen that they love, and giving them an inside behind the scenes look. That's right. Like understanding what value you give to people.
On the politic front, it's a.
I knew you were going to take. Speaking using our fish analogy, I know you were going to take the hook on that.
No, but I had a great.
I mean that in a funny. I mean that in a great way.
I had a I appreciate all the fishing analogies here and references. I do like that. But I had a great conversation with a student athlete the other day.
Sure.
Very successful. They've done a lot of really cool stuff. They're doing a great job with their NIL. And I asked them, I said, okay, you know, what's your mindset here? When you post different things. And they very specifically said, I don't want to put anything out that, half of the customer base will immediately repel and dislike.
Sure.
And they mentioned politics. Yeah. Doesn't matter right, wrong, and
no matter what you believe, or even if you don't pay any attention in the world, it is a very divisive topic, especially in an Olympic year. Half the people are going to be with you, half of them are. That's basically right. I mean, that's pretty much all.
For a 20-year-old to understand that part of the business aspect to everything that they're doing, I thought that was incredibly intelligent.
It's a great take.
Very profound. To understand, hey, it doesn't matter what I put out there when it comes to politics, and I could have the most beneficial thing to, heal, the world, but it's going to offend half of the base, half of my potential customer base.
Absolutely.
So, incredibly profound. A few things are like politics, maybe religion, maybe, right there too. But where if you say the wrong thing, immediately you might get a gut reaction, from half the population. And
people should stay unique to who they are. If that's your thing and you're in on it and you're up to, and you know it inside and out, because you need to. Because one thing we know, social media is filled with fact checkers, right?
Yeah, and this 20-year-old, they knew enough to say, I don't know enough about politics to make this my public position, and for me to ride, that train, for however long.
I love that, because I'm older than 20, and I don't feel comfortable enough just being transparent to get out and speak on politics, because you really kind of need to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how to communicate it, right? Not just knowing in your head, but having an example. And so one of the things, Keith, that I want to talk about that I love some people who do a really good job of storytelling. A reason why you guys will notice I talk about the streamers, because streaming is the top thing. I'm telling you right now, jump on things early. If you want to be good in social, get on the as platforms are developing, jump on them early. Test, test, test. I always get questions all the time. What's the future going to be? Like, what's next? I don't know. But what I can tell you is I'm going to jump on there and I'm going to do what I've always done, which is try out the features, figure out what works. And that's how you become really good. So that's why I talk about streamers all the time. I think in another year or two, everyone's going to be streaming. People are going to be at home washing their dishes, streaming, eating lunch, streaming. Streaming is the thing. So remember back when TikTok was big and people jumped on it and they got 100,000 followers quickly? That's what streaming is. So someone who does a good job within stream. I love Kai Cenat because I think he does a good job. He tells his story, right? He's from the Bronx. I believe in comes from humble means. And so storyteller, he's always bringing people along the way. One of the things he consistently does, you're saying, well, Jay, we're talking about storytelling. Give me some specifics. Well, he gets sent things a lot. And he's honest that he doesn't always open things on air because some things he doesn't feel comfortable with. But like, for example, an artist had a song that they couldn't release, but they said, hey, because they couldn't get the rights cleared, everybody knows you have to have all of the rights cleared if you use like a sample or hook from another song. So he played the song and reacted to it. The song, it went crazy. He's always doing that. Or people will send him custom shoes or gear or things like that, and he will review them. So reason why I'm saying that, many athletes are getting their team gear. They're getting things to them that you could be doing a live stream, just being authentic when you got your gear issued. If you're running some sports, like I always say, and everybody knows I'm a former D1 track athlete. Track has typically the most gear, right? Because they run so long and through so many conditions. That is a huge opportunity, right? To just be authentic, bring people along the process. And so as we think about like how can we storytell, just document, document, document.
Yeah, and I think one thing I like about storytelling, and what I in my opinion I see as effective is, we all have something in common.
Right.
There are some basics to life that we all have in common. Food being one of those, and I'm an older. I'm not an athlete anymore, or so I like to live vicariously through these student athletes, and so food is one thing we can connect on, right? Because
Absolutely.
we all eat, and I love watching videos or reels
Yeah.
of student athletes that are
Yeah.
choosing different things to make, right? And they're telling me why they're putting different ingredients to fuel them in the classroom, to fuel them on the field, or something along that line. I think choosing your topics,
Yeah.
how you want to tell your story, and ironic, that's how people get to know you
Yeah.
too. That's how they get to, you can tell them such interesting things. Well,
Yeah.
my mom learned this recipe where she grew up,
Yeah.
and XYZ. And I think it's a phenomenal opportunity to, share parts of your story. But I think as student athletes really approach this NIL
Right.
space, and they want to tell their stories, think of different ways to things we all have in common. We
Yeah.
might not all have, athletic ability where we can relate to being in a high pressure basketball game and a championship. We
Yeah.
all know food though.
Yeah, no, I love
No,
it. I love it. And I think one question that I get a lot from people is like, Jay, you always say people don't create enough content. How can I do that? Two things that I'd say to people. One, use diversity of content. So what do I mean by that? Everything doesn't need to be a polished reel with your pictures from the entire month. Every day you can pick up your phone, take a photo. That's one piece of content. You can do a video, you can do reels, you can do many types of content. You can get on and talk and record a 30-second video straight from your phone. Because here is the key in 2024 and 2025. You don't need an editor, you don't need a producer. You don't need someone, an editorial committee. You don't need anyone's permission. So start telling your story today. And here's the greatest thing. It's never been easier, Keith. It's never been easier in the history of the world. When I was in school and was learning how to shoot and edit. I mean, you had to have literally the university only had 7 machines that you could edit on in the entire campus.
Wow.
And at that time, that was one of the highest in the country, right? So here's one of the things is understanding what your audience is, right? You don't have to be an expert in YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Just get started and create different forms of content. That is the biggest thing today, and just be consistent with it. And again, as we're talking about what it is, I think the second piece of advice behind that, don't overthink it. Many times, how many times have you been sitting there? Let's be honest here for a minute. Let's have a heart to heart, Keith, and everyone else. How many times have you spent 30 minutes editing a photo, editing a video? Think about this. Your average person is flying through content. They're just doom scrolling. So you spent 30 minutes when you could have created 4 pieces of content in that particular period of time. So you know what I say? Just hit publish. Don't over process it. Take some photos, document it. If you're going to a team event, right? Let's say you guys go out and speak to the school. You only need to take 3 or 4 photos and maybe record a video explaining what it is. That's content. And then you distribute it. So it's 4 pieces of content that I just gave you. And then you distribute that amongst the various products. So a platform, excuse me. So here is a key I'm going to give you today. Write this down. You just probably need to do 4 pieces of content a day. That's what your average person needs. If you're doing 0 and you're not doing that every day, 4 pieces of content. And think about how you can easily do that, thinking about photo, video, and then you can repurpose those things into reels. And there's apps on our phone. Just the native apps are tremendous, right? And so when you think about content, be engaging. It doesn't have to always be reels. Could you ask a quiz question? Could you have a poll question? Can you know what I mean? Hey, what do you think of my outfit today, Keith? Now, Keith, I don't know about your taste, but I don't know about your clothing and design. I'm sorry, you have me crying with the look I made. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, everything doesn't have to be a reel.
Woo! Calling me out on my fashion. I love that.
But does that make sense what I'm saying,
It
Keith?
does. Yeah, everything you're saying is gold. I mean,
Ask questions. One of the things you talked about earlier about being engaging, ask people questions. If you're watching the Olympics and you're an athlete, what was your first event? Right? Like, write out 5 questions. And that's every day you have a question. What was your favorite event that you competed in? What was your first event? What was the first time you won? What was
yeah,
your biggest loss? What was the biggest lesson you learned from sports? Keith, I didn't prepare and I just gave 6 questions. I just gave you 6.
yeah.
Who's your favorite athlete? What's your favorite Olympic moment? I'm at 8 now. I just gave you right. Those 8 days. That's a week's worth of content of questions every day. A question, adding in a question that's light lift content. Remember, you needed 4. We just gave 1.
Wow. Keep going to Jay he's got everything you need. I
No,
love it.
well,
Love it.
I say this because one of the great things about my background of working for sports, your average athletic department, you know this, Keith, has 21, 22, 23 sports. So everything where I've learned to be really resourceful working for brands is big a brand that you can imagine. There's always a bandwidth resource situation, meaning that what people want. Think about it. Your average athletic department has 21 head coaches and how many more assistant coaches, and they all want content. Well, how can we do that? Right? We can use photos, we can use graphics. Like in the summertime, I came up with a whole series of asking questions, and we go back into we spent all that time with the school photographer. So I just go through and find photos, right? And then ask questions with it. And most people, athletes, already have this on your phone. Just go through some of your favorite photos and favorite them so you can find them. Ask questions. Share favorite moments. One of the things, Keith, I just get pumped up thinking about this. One of the favorite things right now, and this is a trend, it may not be a trend if you see this in the future, but on TikTok, and there's a song called It All Works Out. I can't remember the artist, but it's called It All Works Out. And basically what it's about is the journey, the grind, the grit. And what it is people will say, out of school, I had no offers. one person wanted me. I ended up in a JUCO, and then they go to a photo and video of them on at Oklahoma, at Alabama. I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, and people are saying they're sharing their journey, Keith. They're sharing their journey, and
Yeah.
that's the power of organic social media that's never been available.
Yeah, that's great examples. I do love those stories, and you know, I I love those scholarship walk-ons, or the
Yeah,
walk-ons that are getting the scholarship. Those
right.
moments, you know, people like to see those moments. You know,
Yeah,
those transitional moments, and so I think what you're kind of pointing to, you know, you're, again, we're letting people into a window into our
yeah.
life, and letting them live vicariously through us, and experiencing what it's been like.
Yeah, your
And
story is your superpower, Keith. Use it to build your personal brand and use it to stand out.
yeah, absolutely. I feel we talked about, being humble,
Yeah,
having gratitude, or,
yeah,
you know, I feel humbled. I feel a great deal of gratitude that I've been just a small sliver of some people's story. And I think as we approach life, and as we continue on, we continue to just be willing to be a sliver of other people's
yeah,
lives, and our actions, our thoughts, and stuff like that. And I think as we approach social media, always having a positive mindset,
yeah,
people relate to it, and people understand it. And I think, we're just adding a little sliver to their day,
yeah.
with content.
Yeah, that's the power of storytelling. It's what really drives me to help people build irresistible brands that are authentic, that
Yeah,
provide value and connect with the audience to help you live your dreams. I absolutely love that. And as I keep always saying, understanding that we live in a great space and time where this has never been so easy, so cheap, so affordable. And so, I'm really excited to go on this journey with you to help athletes and anyone else, right? All the things that we're sharing are applicable no matter what your vocation is, where your train in life is, whether as we always love, we think about your average teacher, right? We could look on social media right now, and there's teachers out there with 200, 300,000 followers. They're making money recommending the items that they're stocking there right now. It's August, but they're sharing with people, these are the tools that I'm using to be a great teacher. These are the pens, these are the markers. And then people are then buying them. They're getting a little commission, making money. It's the same thing athletes are doing. So, I get really excited about the opportunity to help each and every athlete, each and every coach, athletic department, and administrators live out their dreams. So if you like what you have, if you like what we've been talking about, what Keith and I have been talking about, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and join this journey with us to help student athletes and all of the people who support them live out their dreams.
absolutely. Please hit that like button, subscribe, follow us. Uh, we're hoping to share a lot of great stories along the way, and let other people's get in that here and get a chance to make you smile, give you something thought
Yeah.
provoking to think about. Add
Yeah.
to your. Let's go.
And you know what, being we talk about authenticity. It's our first live stream. A lot of work went into it, and you just have to get started. This is our journey. Join it with us. We plan to do these to help you. And part of that is this is our first live stream together. And as I've been talking earlier, live streams are the future, and that's why, and it's actually the present. That's why we're doing them. So as we wrap up how to leverage NIL for personal success today on this live stream, I'm really excited. We introduced the show. We shared with you the basics of NIL and how to start leveraging it today. Some of the common mistakes that athletes are making. Keith shared a lot of those with you. I've shared them with you, and they're going to be so helpful to you. And the power of storytelling. Creating an irresistible brand that connects with people, that moves people, that touches people, so that we hope that you found great insights and that it's been an inspirational process, and we're just really humbled. I can only speak for myself. I'm really humbled to be on this journey with you, Keith.
Oh, I'm extremely excited. The energy you bring to the table, Jay, is amazing. And I think the mentality of helping people is where we connect so well,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we want to offer something great, and we want to offer some sort of thought-provoking advice, get
Yeah.
people at least thinking about it. Even if you don't
Yeah.
agree, hopefully we're getting you to think about
Yeah.
something, you know. And I like to think about this when it comes to social media and when it comes to NIL. Sometimes the things that you post are important.
Right.
Sometimes the things you don't post are just as important too.
Advice from Uncle Keith that is very valuable. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited because, as we've worked together in the past, I've asked different coaches like, man, who's your favorite person to work with over there? And they're like, oh man, Keith, he'll just work it out. Like, we don't know. We don't know how many scholarships we have because we've committed. And Keith we'll just work, we'll pencil and pen it and figure it out. So, and that's been my experience with you. So I'm really, as I said, humbled and excited to go on this journey.
I appreciate that, Jay. You're a phenomenal human being, and that's what I've always loved about you. Always smiling. You're
Hey.
always smiling. We can always talk a little track and field. You know, I love talking track every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those. It's the oldest sport. I'm faster than you on the playground. I go
Right.
back to
Right.
my little school,
No, you're
my
so
old
right.
school. I'm faster than you. Let's race. And I think, it's just an amazing
Yeah.
way to have that connection for us to talk about and for us to really build that relationship, get to know each other. And that's what we want these student athletes to do, is learn
Yeah.
how to build a relationship with their audience,
Yeah.
and to be able to have that audience to somehow monetize it with NIL. So having that personality,
Yeah.
having that ability to connect with people is critical to leveraging your NIL. It is absolutely critical.
Yep. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to stay on top of all the content, the latest that we're going to keep dropping week after week after week. Follow us on social media for more tips and updates.
And I can't wait for some of the special guests we have lined up for this upcoming future.
Yeah.
In case folks get tired of hearing, as you called it, Uncle Keith, they get
Hey,
to
I have
hear
a new
from
nickname for you. It might
others.
be Unk. People call you Unk.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it.
All right. That wraps us up. How to leverage NIL for brand success and NIL, our first live stream. We're going to take it away. Thank you. Subscribe, follow us, and join us on the journey. Thanks,
Thanks,
Keith.
everybody, for having us.